Hello and welcome back to So Forth and So On. I am Miss Henderson, and today I want to talk about fabric scraps. As you see, I have a bunch of scraps here, and this doesn't even begin to show all the fabric scraps that I have from the many different projects that I work on. So first of all, I want to encourage you, do not throw away your fabric scraps when you are making your garments or sewing projects. Kind of collect them, and if you can, organize them by color and type of fabric. I have not done that, and that's something that I will work toward this year sometime. But meanwhile, save your fabric scraps, because you'd be surprised what you can do with a very little bit of material. So with these scraps here, I am going to make what they call scrap busters to get rid of some of the scrap that I have, and maybe weekly I will show you a scrap buster that you can use to get rid of your scraps and make something useful for yourself or to give away to a friend. So this is something that I thought would be nice since we are headed into the Lenten season. Ash Wednesday is coming up this week, I believe, and so I want to show you how to do what they call pocket prayers, and I make these and I give them to people all the time. Actually, they turn out to be something like this, and when you open it, it's something really pretty. And so you can put a prayer inside, a little message, and they can put it in their pocket and keep it with them at all time. A little encouraging message or note or anything, and it fits right in here, and they just slip it in their pocket, their purse, wherever, and when they need a little message of encouragement or something, they can look at this and rejoice. And this was made with just scrap fabric that was left over. Okay, so let's get started. Our measurements you're going to need 2 pieces of fabric for a lining and an outer fabric, and then you will need either interfacing, or you could use some batting if you wanted it to be soft and cushy, and then you would need a piece of lace. And even this lace here, this lace I put 2 pieces together to make it the width that I needed it, and so you can do a lot of different things with your scrap. So as a matter of fact, I have scrap catchers under my sewing machine, so when I'm cutting I can just put it in these small waste baskets like this, and then I collect it. Scraps can be used for stuffing when you're making stuffed animals or small pillows or pin cushions and things. And then I also, and I don't know if I showed you this already, but I'm going to show it to you again. I collect my thread. So it's a thread catcher that they make. I have a real one over there, but I use a broken flower pot. I believe I showed it to you. But these are all the threads from cutting. All the threads. So when I'm on my machine and I cut, I just toss them in here, and then I'll show you a project I made really quickly from threads. I made a zipper pouch, and it is from threads and scraps that I fused together, and then I did put a netting over top and did free motion quilting, and I made my own fabric, and then I cut the fabric and made it into a zipper pouch. So I think that's awesome. So save your scraps and your threads, and you may have enough to make more fabric. Alright, so let's get started with this prayer pocket. You want to measure your lining piece and your outer piece at 4 inches by 6 inches. Okay. And I'm just going to rough cut it for the sake of the demonstration. And also for the sake of the demonstration, I'm going to use the same fabric for the outer and the lining. In addition to the two fabrics, the lining and the outer fabric, you'll need, like I said, some interfacing or batting. You would also need the piece of lace that measures 6 by 2, and then you will need a piece of ribbon. Okay, now you don't necessarily have to use lace. You can use regular fabric. This seems to be the measurement that I need, so I think I'm going to make it all one piece, and that keeps things simple. The little piece of lace I made, I'll just put it to the side and use it for something different. I'm going to use all of this one thing here. So the only other thing that I would need is a piece of ribbon. Perhaps I can use this piece of, the little lace that I made here. I'll use it as the ribbon. And the ribbon should be 17 inches long. And this is not quite 17. This is 13, but you know what? We're going to make it work for the sake of this demonstration. And when you're making projects, they're yours. They're your projects, and you make them the way you would have them. Alright, so what we want to do, I think this time I am going to use a piece of batting, and I'm just going to cut one piece of batting 6 by 4. As a matter of fact, I'm going to cut it just a little bit smaller, like 5.5 by 3.5, to reduce some of the bulk. But we'll see. I'm not being exact here. Just keep in mind it's a scrap project. Okay, so you have your right side of one piece facing up, and I just iron it out of habit and determine where you want the top or where you want the bottom. So I think I want this to be the top, and then that piece, that little strappy piece there, one thing you want to do is fold down the top edge about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, and iron it down to give you a nice clean top edge. That's the beauty of putting the lace there. You don't have to do that because the lace is already set up. But considering it's a project for scraps, we don't want to pull out lace. So now you just sew along that edge that you iron down. I'm not even worried about the color of the machine the color of the thread in my machine. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so that's sewn across the top. Now I'm just going to lay it along the bottom edge of that fabric that's facing right side up. So now I have it like this, and everything is right side up. The little piece here and the fabric right side up, and you have it lined up. And if it overhangs a little bit, that's fine. Okay? And so now the ribbon, this is our ribbon here, I want to put that, and we'll pin that. Well, hopefully you can see. Okay, so this is the inside piece, and then this is that pocket piece there that I laid right there. The edges are raw edges are flush. I'm going to take this ribbon and I'm going to put it right here and pin it just to keep it in place. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side and pin it. And at this point I'm pinning the ribbon and the little pocket piece to the main piece. And so now you end up with something like this, and you just set your ribbon down inside and pin it just to keep it out of the way. Okay, so you end up with something like this. Alright. And your other piece here, you lay it on top. And you put your batting. Now if you were using interfacing, you would have ironed it on too. But since I'm using batting, we just lay it on top, and then you find those pins you use and use those same pins to pin that on top. Now you're pinning through everything. Don't bother the pin in the middle that's holding the ribbon, just the ones on the edges. So you're just dealing with 2 pins right now. And we're holding everything in place. And you can add more pins on the outside if you want. What we're going to do now is sew all around the edge, leaving an opening for turning, like everything. And then we're going to turn it right side out and see what we have. Okay, so I'm going to start here, and I'm going to sew all the way down, then pivot, then come here, pivot, here, all the way there, there, and I'm going to stop right there, and this part is going to be open. And you remove your pins as you go along. I'm using a straight stitch, 2-inch length or 2.5-inch length, and of course 0 width. Begin and end with a back stitch. Move your pins as you come to them. And then we want to, you can remove those pins that are, so all the pins are on the outside, you can remove them. And then you want to clip your corners and so forth. I put this up here. It's usually down here, but I put this up here to show you. Generally when I'm cutting, I cut directly into the waist area so that I don't have to pick it up later. And you just want to trim it down to reduce the bulk and cut on those corners. Do not trim the area by the opening where you left for the opening. Don't trim that area because you will need something to turn down. And cut those corners like on an angle. And then get rid of all of your loose threads. And then you should be okay. You can give it a press to set your seam. And since the iron is hot, I will. That's when it's good to have glass head pins so that you don't melt the plastic head pins. But here we are. Okay, so we press that down to set the seam, and now all we want to do is just fold it right side out. Be careful, don't poke yourself with that pin that you had holding that ribbon down. Really quick project. I'm going to be making a bunch of these for my students. I always like to give them an encouraging word, and so I'll just have them in a little bucket, and if someone needs something, I'll pass them out as needed. Eventually everyone will have one. Like to give motivation to my students. When I rode the bus, I would give out things on the bus to people. Just always giving and demonstrating the love of God. And so that's where my the channel name, my Nothing Wasted, Faith with Works is Alive, because the work of the Lord is very important to me, and I think that sewing is one way that I am connected with the work of the Lord. And then when I said nothing wasted, because I don't waste anything. I'm so grateful for what God has provided for me. I don't waste it, my resources. Like these scraps, I just don't throw away the fabric. When I'm done with it, I find something useful to make of it, and it's been brilliant. Okay, all right. So we have this turned out. You want to use your scissors to go in and poke out the corners really nicely. Just be careful. I have a pokey tool, but for the sake of the video, I'm just trying to go faster, and I just want to get the information to you. Okay, so we're just going to poke out these corners. If you do use your scissors, be very, very careful so that you don't poke all the way through. Give it a nice tug. We're almost done. Give it a little press. Now be careful, as far as some ribbon like this one might melt if it gets hot, so be mindful of that. You know, we've do all this on your project and then you melt it. You don't want to do that. So, although I have done stuff at the end of a project, and it's sad. Okay, so now a couple things you want to do. You want to fold this in half with the little pocket part inside. Fold that in half, nice and neat. Let's get that down. Let me turn this nylon toward me because something tells me if I keep pressing backwards, I am going to melt my nylon ribbon. Okay, so now we have that done. What we're going to do with this ribbon is cut it. And you can put a knot at the end of it. It's your project. You do it how you want to do it. I'm going to put a little knot at the end of it. That makes it a little smaller. Okay, and this is just for closing it up. Okay, I can make a better knot than that. Can I? That might have been the best I could do. Oh, I got better than that. There we go. So I have my knot there. I have the knot there, and I have my little pockets there. By it being all the same fabric, it's difficult to see. So now what we want to do is just sew all the way around a top stitch, all the way around where we sewed the first time, so that we can close up that hole there. And this will be a good place to use your decorative stitches when you're doing the top stitch. You could, I use a straight stitch, but you could have used a zigzag or any other decorative stitches that you may have on your machine. Those decorative stitches are the most underused things, other than the different sewing feet that we have. I have a set of so many sewing feet, and I only use the same ones all the time. Okay, so now this is done. The last thing you want to do is where you folded it in half, like that. You want to open it up and sew a seam straight down there on that line there. And you know you can make these on a larger scale. And you just did a simple line there. Cut your threads and put them in your thread catcher. And save them for another project. And you're done. And so then you can take your pocket prayers. I generally print a sheet of little cards like this with prayers and Bible verses on them, and I stick them in there in the pocket. And I close it. Any little message, a kind word, be brave, you know. You are loved. Any words of encouragement. Tie it up and hand it to them. This is for you. God bless you. I love you. May love bring you to your feet again and show you how to dream again. In Jesus' name. Goodbye.